Hello, my name is Dominic Valeri, and I'd like to welcome you to the Practical Storytelling Overview. The other day I was talking to a business owner, and he had been in business about 15 years, and he had gotten a little frustrated because during that time, that 15 years, he had done all the marketing for his company. He had gone through all these plans and taken out ads and all this kind of stuff, and he was frustrated because he couldn't seem to get the business to the next level. Even though he's had 15 years experience marketing it, he couldn't seem to get it to move forward at this point. So I started asking him some questions about what types of things he was doing, what types of techniques he was using, and he went on to kind of describe his typical marketing year. He had a special for each season. He had a spring special, a summer special, winter special, etc. He had ways of communicating those specials. Every month he had sort of like 3 publications he would take advertisements in. He would run specials every week. And, as he outlined this all to me, and he talked about how it had worked or not worked year to year, I realized that he was really doing the same things year to year. So part of the issue of why his business might not be moving forward is that he actually didn't have 15 years experience marketing the business. He really had done the same things every year. So in effect, he'd only had 1 year experience marketing his business. He had just repeated that 1 year 15 times. So that's one of the things that practical storytelling is really all about. It's about approaching things from a different aspect, a different approach. Not only does storytelling help you sell your business, market your business, or train, it can also give you a different, fresh perspective on things. And that's really one of the main ideas behind practical storytelling, and I'd like to tell you a little bit more about it today. To give you a little more background about myself, I've actually spent over 14 years as an instructional designer, which is really a fancy name for a training developer. I've developed a number of programs, really over 1,000 hours of training over those years, and quite a few of those hours has been training salespeople and looking at different techniques and helping them generate more sales. I've worked in a number of different mediums, including electronic and more traditional print. I've worked in just about all the different industry sections, including corporate, government, nonprofit, and education. And I found a number of similarities in each one. I've written 2 books, of course, practical storytelling, and a fiction book called The Gingerbread Man. Now, throughout my career, I've always, if there's one thing that I've been consistent about, or one thing that I think has really marked my career, it's this idea of telling stories and trying to find the story and trying to find an organization's story. And that's really what I've kind of condensed now here into this step-by-step instruction that I call the practical storytelling method. So in this presentation, we're going to look at 3 key ideas. First of all, we're going to look at the overall role of storytelling and how it can be effective. Then we're going to look at stories and motivation, how it is that stories motivate. It's important to understand the mechanics of stories to be able to apply them effectively. And third, we're actually going to look at storytelling application. And I'm going to give you an idea of some of the step-by-step processes there that you can take to use storytelling and stories in your own marketing, sales, or training programs. Storytelling has always been an integral part of human culture. From the earliest days of people sitting around a campfire talking about stories from the hunt, through the Greek tragedies, Shakespearean plays, the different archetype characters that have developed over the years, the journey story, the coming-of-age story, shared stories such as the flood story that appears in many cultures, all the way up through our modern age of mass media, television, books, movies, even our water cooler talk. Our shared stories, our first day at work, the difficult client that we managed to sell to, and so on. We use stories to explore ourselves and who we are as a people. There are several advantages to storytelling. Stories, first of all, are more interesting for you. They're not just interesting for your audience, but they're actually interesting for you. They're more fun to tell, they're more enjoyable, and it's an interesting and engaging way to explore a specific topic. So we've all filled out things like, what's your unique selling proposition? Well, that can kind of be dry and in the box. The idea about storytelling is if I start to ask things like, well, what's your theme? Who are your characters? What are your major plot points? It puts things in a different way. And when you answer, you're probably going to come upon insights you probably wouldn't have thought of normally. That's the whole idea here. If you remember back to the first story that I opened up with, that merchant hadn't tried anything new. He hadn't looked at things from a different perspective. That's what storytelling is all about, looking at things from a different perspective. Stories also break your message out of standard patterns. We're all used to the typical rhythm or pattern of a sales pitch. We know what to expect when we walk into most training programs, but by using stories, we can take a different approach and we can capture attention early. If you think back to the way I started out this presentation, I could have started with a table of contents, I could have started with an introduction of myself, but I didn't. I started with a story that allowed me to capture your attention early and lay groundwork on the themes I was going to talk about during the rest of the presentation. There are a number of books and speakers and workshops out there about storytelling and about using stories. But most of these really focus on kind of an academic or a very high level of why stories are important. What really makes my technique different is that I've focused mainly on practical, real-world application. So I'm not just telling you, why stories are important or how they work, but then I'm taking the next step and telling you how that you can apply them. So I use a lot of specific real-life examples. To that end, let me talk a minute about the 3 levels of storytelling application. Level 1 is your overall level. It's organizational. This is the kind of, what's our corporate story kind of thing. What's our theme? What is it that we do that nobody else does? This is at a very high level. This is something you involve everybody in the organization with, and it gets everybody using the same language. Level 2 is what I've called the campaign level. This is when you have a specific program that's going to run for a set amount of time. So for example, maybe you're rolling out a training program that's going to have several modules and take several months. Or you're going to have an advertising campaign that's going to run for a significant length of time. What really categorizes a campaign is that within the campaign there are several smaller messages that are going on. And the idea behind stories in this application is that you use the story to make sure everything's consistent. The 3rd level of storytelling is direct storytelling. These are stories that you tell every day and tell to achieve a very specific purpose. So in other words, the story I might tell to sell a product, or the story I might tell as part of a marketing campaign, or the story I would tell during a training session to teach a specific point. Now often direct stories derive from level 2 and level 1 stories. In this presentation, we're going to spend the most time looking at level 1 stories just because it translates well to this sort of overall approach. However, the books and the workshops provide examples and explore stories from all 3 levels.